On this week's episode, will GameStop's latest blunder be the final nail in the coffin? Restructuring the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and what will happen to the movie theater industry? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, Game Source, and Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Thank you so much for listening to all of our great programs. But wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He's our own TP hunter for Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, his awesome podcast, Topicocalypse, and of course his book, which you should get today on Kindle for just $2.99. Congratulations, you suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
Just trying to get some toilet paper, trying to stay clean.
Telling you, man, one of these days you're just going to have to go swing around there like Indiana Jones, find that last roll of TP, and just make sure you get it before the whole mob crew comes after you, and you can just go slide away in your vehicle just in the nick of time with that last roll of TP. Gotta get that TP. But it is going to be a great episode. We're going to be talking about a lot of great subjects, including restructuring the Marvel Cinematic Universe because of what's going on with the coronavirus. We're going to put Josh, and maybe myself as well, in the role of Kevin Feige and seeing how everything he had intentionally intended to lay out way back when he announced the lineup for the next couple of years for the next phase 4 at Comic-Con. Unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, that all could be changing. So we're going to be sitting in the role of Kevin Feige and saying, you know what, maybe we need to make some changes within the structure and framework of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we'll throw out some ideas coming out here in a bit. Plus also as well, the movie theater industry has been hit very, very hard by the coronavirus, as is the case with most industries out there. What will happen to the movie theater industry going forward? We're going to talk about that coming up at the back end of the show. But first off, my friend, we want to go ahead and finish our conversation on GameStop stemming from last week's PC Multiverse, because as you remember, when we last left GameStop, they were calling themselves an essential store that needs to be open nationwide and keeping their doors open in defiance of what many state governors were asking them to do. And we talked about the differences and how they were approaching their business as opposed to our good friend Douglas Hoyabu at Retro City Games. And it looks like after some persuasion by law enforcement in several states and their business license being suspended in Pennsylvania, they are finally complying with the state governor's wishes out there for them to close, and they are closing nationwide, and that they're only open to e-commerce and drive through, drive up, pick up service, that type of deal. You ask for what you want, you go ahead and get it, you pay for it all through the drive, all through your card, nothing go ahead as far as you coming in doing the normal transaction type deal. So I ask you, my friend, this is another major black mark on the ledger for GameStop right now. They've had quite a few black eyes, not only this year, but in the past recent years, couple years, 2, 3, 4 years. And they don't have the greatest reputation at all anyways. So I ask you, my friend, is this latest blunder by GameStop, this latest PR faux pas, per se, something that will be maybe the final deal the final blow that ends GameStop, and something which, maybe GameStop can't recover from?
I don't know, because I feel like they were fighting really hard because they're on the verge of being closed down. It's economics for them. It's not really just a matter of trying to be relevant or like going against the against the grain. It's they're on their last leg, and if they shut down, who's to say they're going to have the revenue to open back up again, right? They let their employees are only getting 2 weeks worth of pay, and say this thing lasts longer. Obviously, it's going to last longer than 2 weeks, but say this thing lasts, well into August or September, they're not going to have the power to reopen, right? Not to mention that in this time, right, from August to or not August, from now to September, they're losing out on big releases, right? The Doom and Animal Crossing, we already talked about those. Final Fantasy VII remake, Cyberpunk, the announcement, the chance to pre-order the new consoles, right? Like there's a lot of things that they're missing out on. So those are big revenue opportunities for them. And if their doors aren't open to pursue those things, then yes, they are going to go out of business. It's economics that's keeping them, that is making them think that they're allowed to stay open, because if they close, then it's really, how are they going to come back? This could be the nail in the coffin for them.
And that's what's so interesting about this, because in the past we've talked about them and their either bad luck or bad management or just poor performance overall. They've lost hundreds of millions of dollars, not just a million or two, not just in the tens, in the hundreds of millions of dollars per year over the past 2-3+ years now as a company. And they've been unable to find someone to bail them out or even buy their company outright from them. They've had to go ahead and close ThinkGeek. They've had to go ahead and, like you talked about, them being more of a collectible store at this point in time, because they had to go ahead and bring in all of ThinkGeek's inventory and disperse that to all the stores. They were before the coronavirus hit, they were thinking about going ahead and introducing a new concept type store. Then they had several proposals which they were going ahead and do into some test market stores and things of that nature. So they were trying some things before the coronavirus hit. But as we talked about earlier this year, there was the issue of what they were still telling consumers, the hard driving sales and the certain things that they were going ahead and putting pressure on their employees for, which were getting a lot of bad press in both Polygon and IGN. In fact, you remember it came out on the same day within 10 minutes roughly of each other. I think it was the actual thing we were quoting on here, in a recent episode from the past. So I want to ask you, my friend, with the way GameStop is doing business, I know we talked about Reggie Fils-Aimé on the last episode becoming a board member now, but do you think that if there was a new change in leadership that would bring maybe a new way or new focus of doing things? Or do you think at this point they should just go ahead and shelve or nix, virtually most or all of their brick and mortar stores?
They're not hitting the right markets. Because think about it like this, like, yes, gamers do like collectibles, but at the same time, gamers aren't buying. The used game market is not what it used to be, right? Like a lot of these things you're buying in store, they're selling them, whether physical, new or used or whatever it is, they're selling them for a lot more than people are willing to pay for them. And what keeps a lot of the brick and mortar stores open, like the mom and pop shops, is the fact that they're selling video games, right? They're selling things from like the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, Sega Genesis. Like that, in my opinion, is a legit gaming store. And that's why I prefer to go to those stores instead of the brick and mortar GameStop stores, because they're a gaming store, like with GameStop, they're a collectible store with 2 or 3 shelves of video games. And that's not what that feels very corporate to me, very Hot Topic, very corporate. It doesn't feel right. And you go in there, and we talked about this before too, the people they can't talk to you. Their managers get mad at them for having a conversation with you. So why bother going in there? I go to a place that has like retro games in there, and they'll talk with me all day, and it's one of those things. GameStop is not a very welcoming place, and they're not really a video game store. It's not, you go in there and you don't feel friendly. You feel like they're trying to get you to buy your thing and then get you out. And that's not a healthy sales strategy for a store that sells not a huge variety of games.
And then remember, they've tried over the course of the past few years, they've tried everything from getting back into retro stuff. They went really hard into retro for just like a hot minute, and then they were I think they still, as of this point, are trying to get you to go ahead and sell your phone to them, or your laptop, or your or your tablet, or anything down there. They wanted to get your electronics. They stopped talking about video games per se and just put that on the back burner. And then also they were just just trying a whole bunch of things. ThinkGeek, like I said, they bought out ThinkGeek, and they thought that was going to be a great acquisition for them. And unfortunately, they could not keep that open. And unfortunately, their plans with ThinkGeek looks like they went awry. And you see the fallout from it. They've now influxed all their stores with bunches of collectibles that just, for the most part, gather dust because they're not competitively priced. I mean, you could go and get many of the pops, many of the T-shirts, many of the things that you see there at other places somewhat cheaper than what they're selling them at GameStop. You're looking for, maybe there's some GameStop exclusives, but as their buying power gets less and less, their notoriety gets less and less as well.
Yeah, I agree. They're not paying attention to the markets that actually care about them. They're trying to create all these different markets. They're a video game store that doesn't sell a lot of video games, and I think that is the foundation of their problem.
It is. So it's very disappointing to see what has become of GameStop, and their defiance in the midst of a pandemic is not a good look for them. And this is one in a series of PR blunders that they've had in recent years. That it's just, you don't see anything good coming down the pike for them, which is a shame, because as a video game aficionado, and me as someone who has been involved with video games ever since the late 1970s, and someone who actually ran a video game store, it's a shame, because if GameStop goes out, there's really no nationwide chain to take over. There's really no one that's going to be interested in saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and open 500, 600 stores. I mean, there's a couple smaller chains that are out there that have stores in several states, but they're not going to be to the extent that GameStop is, and that GameStop was, for that matter, before they started closing stores as well. And that's a shame also to the thousands of employees that they have, which are going to be adversely affected as well. But they brought this on to themselves. I mean, they were the big boy at one point in time that nobody could touch. I mean, when I was running Game Crazies, they were the preeminent game store anywhere, and their name was just synonymous with, okay, I got to go get whatever new game is coming out, I got to go get it there. And now that's not the case. You can literally go and get it anywhere. Pre-ordering is not necessary unless you're trying to find a collector's piece. There's really no need to go ahead and pre-order if you're just getting a regular version. You can go and get it on Amazon. You can download it off the PlayStation or Xbox stores. You could just walk into a Walmart or Target when it's safe to go ahead and do so. Not right now, really, unless you're just going to go ahead and pick up some food, like I said last week. But, it's just so much easier now in these days to go ahead and purchase video games that it seems almost unnecessary in a sense to go to GameStop. Even getting retro games. You can get retro games pretty much anywhere you want. You can go to a local mom and pop store, like you said, Retro City Games, like we've said here in Las Vegas area, mom and pop stores across the country, or just get it off the Amazon or eBays of the world, and you're just as good as you're just as good as if you bought it from GameStop themselves.
Yeah, and they're also a lot friendlier, and I'm more inclined to help them out because I appreciate what they're doing. I appreciate their love of games, whereas GameStop is and this sounds bad, but they're a very heartless company. Their employees obviously like video games, or else they wouldn't be working there. But other than that, what are you getting from them? You're not getting anything, and you're just kind of promoting a corporation, as opposed to giving people who have spent a lot of money and a lot of time and put a lot of effort into maintaining these big businesses that are these these shops that they've opened up. They're small business owners. They're independent. They are the ones that really need our support. So why would I go to GameStop to buy something and have them not talk to me and not really treat me well, as opposed to going to a place that actually has just racks and racks of video games and people who will talk to you, people who really do care about their job? That's the big question here is, who is more worthy of our money, the people who run the small business video game stores or GameStop? And I think that question's easy to answer.
That question, unfortunately, now is easy to answer. And after several public relations fiascos, it looks like for GameStop, the future, which wasn't even the brightest to begin with, which we have said on the show is not looking all that hot anyways, is now looking even bleaker. What are your thoughts on GameStop's insistence on being essential in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic, and then ultimately getting all their stores pulled, and then ultimately having to close their stores by force from the due to what's going on with the coronavirus out there? If you have an opinion on what's going on with GameStop, and if you'll actually return to a GameStop to buy products out there, we'd love to hear your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, my friend, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I want you to go ahead. You're in Marvel Tower, my friend. You're sitting back at your desk. You got the nameplate right there. It says Kevin Feige. We'll go ahead. Kevin Feige, right there. In fact, we'll call it Kevin, nicknamed Josh Feige. How about that for you? We're going to go ahead and have you look at the surrounding situation right now. The situation right now, which is obviously due to what's going on with the coronavirus, very concerning. They recently had to postpone the upcoming Black Widow movie, which is now up in the air on when it's ever going to come out, and if it's going to come out to a movie format or a streaming format. I know people out there talking about Wonder Woman and DC and Warner Brothers, just trying to go back and forth and deliberating whether or not they should just go straight to streaming. I'm sorry, that's a $750 to $1 billion movie, just like Black Widow does. Just like Black Widow, if it comes out to theaters, even in a market where all theaters may not be open, it still will generate a lot of funds. I don't think for either of them the prospect will be there personally to go ahead and go straight to streaming. I think both of them will be on a theatrical format at some point in time. So I ask you, my friend, this coronavirus is going to necessitate a restructuring of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's start off with maybe where would you place the Black Widow movie, and then we'll go from there.
Well, the Black Widow movie, are we talking about as far as like releasing goes?
Yes, because if we're lucky, the Black Widow movie will still be the first Phase 4 Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, possibly a July, August, September release, but I'm seriously doubting that if this goes too much longer, because as the months as the weeks and the months go by, you and I talked about release dates for these games, and if GameStop was closed until July, August, September, I have a feeling if it goes beyond that and these movie theaters don't reopen in the summer, this could be some real serious, reshaping of where it goes. Black Widow, where would you put it if that's the case?
Sorry, hold on one second. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of emails, like important emails now that everything's online for work. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, no, I mean, it's as far as releasing goes, that's tough because I've been watching this whole thing. I've been watching the way that people are responding to it, and I've kind of have come to the conclusion here that it's not, people are still willing to pay to watch movies. But if you notice, people are really stoked about the idea of being able to watch a movie that's in theaters from their couch. And so I am looking at this as as the, maybe a new structure of movie viewing, maybe a new type of movie viewing, because you have these people who, we're in the Netflix and chill era. So people are okay paying a certain price to watch a movie, but they are more stoked about doing it from their couch than going to the movie theater. So that being said, with Black Widow, I would push it out. I would push it out as soon as possible. They're already talking about having Wonder Woman be a straight to video on demand release, and people are that's just what the news I've been reading on
Oh
it.
no, I know. That's you hear one report says that they're thinking about it. You hear another report says they're not thinking about it. If it's on the table, but then again, you'll be losing out on several $100 million at the theaters.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, if you look at it, people are still willing to pay like the 1999 to get the video on demand. People are still willing to pay that. So I feel like there is still a market for it. It's just not going to be what it used to be. And this whole coronavirus thing might actually be a good demonstration of what is how to, the changing movie landscape, what needs to be done in order to fix it, to adapt, to move on. So that's a very very interesting idea. And I would go ahead if DC is willing to put out Wonder Woman. I would honestly, like, I would go ahead and put Black Widow out straight to digital, especially since things are so unclear right now. Nobody knows when people are going to be willing to go back into the movie theaters, especially since a lot of the data coming out saying even once the coronavirus is gone, who's to say that it won't just jump right back? So I don't see, how even when that curve flatlines, who is to say that people are going to be running to go back out to the movie theater? That's the big question here. And it's not, it's a question here too of like, are they willing, what's the financial situation? Are they willing to take a risk like that and say, hey, meanwhile, this company's putting this movie straight to DVD or straight to video on demand, but we're going to go ahead and shoot for that movie theater release? I don't know if that's a risk that I would be willing to take.
The thing is, though, Black Widow is a movie that you and I have been talking about for a long time. You and I have been going back and forth on this ever since the inception of this show. And this is something that should have taken place a long time ago. The only thing that is going to really come out of it, I mean, I was watching a YouTube video the other day that they said that most likely the reviews will probably start off with, well, this is a good movie, but this should have come out at this point in time. This should have come out in phase 3. This should have come out in phase 2. This should have come out many years ago. And you're already starting off with that against it. I'm thinking that maybe it doesn't need to go first. I'm thinking that maybe you should start off with the Eternals, which is scheduled right now later in the year. I think November, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you should start off with that one first. Move Black Widow. And this hurts me when I say this because I have been clamoring for years for a Black Widow movie. My daughters are big Black Widow fans, and this would actually hurt me very much to say this, but I think maybe Black Widow can be moved to some point in the schedule next year, because what it really does outside of establishing her story and that she had a life and a family before she mentioned she didn't have a family in Avengers Endgame, which was, makes it totally weird because how she mentioned she didn't have a family until the Avengers. And, as we see in Black Widow, she did have a family. But again, I digress on that. It establishes, what most people are speculating is the beginning of the Thunderbolts, because you have Thunderbolt Ross in there. You have, the Taskmaster in there. And you're thinking, a lot of people are speculating, and I think rightly so, that this is probably going to establish the beginnings of and the workings of Thunderbolt, because you're seeing, Baron Zemo in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You're seeing what is U.S. Agent in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You're starting to see the semblance and the formation of the Thunderbolts. And I have a feeling that at some point in time they're going to introduce them as a group and collectively go after, whatever the Avengers are at that point in time. I have a feeling, if you watch it or if I watch it, I've been waiting for a long time for it, but I feel that it can go maybe at summer next year. It could be maybe bump Doctor Strange 2 and put that as maybe the late autumn, because I'm not even sure as a horror movie, Doctor Strange 2 would be a wise fit at that prime movie location as May at what they're talking about at this point in time. I was thinking about starting with the Eternals first and foremost later this year.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, though, like if we're just going to play it safe and push all these, all these big heroes, we're going to push their movies back more. There needs to be some kind of, I guess, more Disney Plus content, more things that are maybe not doing a full adventure for a lot of these heroes, but kind of checking in on where they're at. Because I think that if you don't come back strong with a big name property for your first movie after, the movie theater's been closed down for this long, it's not going to be a lot of incentive to go to the movie theaters. It's like I see Winter and even, that's this is really hard because I know they stopped filming a lot of the Disney Plus shows too. So, oh, geez.
You see the quandary you're in, Kevin, as
Yeah.
I call you right now, Mr. Feige, sir. But you see the option, you see the options that you have, and you see the quandary that you're in because the fact that it's just with everything being bumped back. But also you got to remember, at the time that Spider-Man Far From Home ended its run, people were kind of burnt on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You were kind of tired of it. I mean, it's now going to be going on maybe a year or more, year and a half before you see the next Marvel, product. So maybe that's not such a bad thing as far as people getting that anticipation once again.
Yeah, but wouldn't you also say Black Widow is a safe property to release ASAP because
it's a familiar and safe product? I agree with you, but the timeline is always whacked. Where's that?
Well, because Black Widow it's a flashback film, so that's why I feel like it's such a safe release for them.
It is, and if you could say that way, you're right. But this is a movie that should have come out a long time ago, and I understand the higher ups that were above Kevin Feige at the time wouldn't allow this and Black Panther to come out as even sooner than it did, and that's a shame because both of them I think would have been a good fit for Phase 2 or early Phase 3. But you know what? I just think if it continues and you cannot show movies in July, there you're going to get into some problems because you're going to go ahead and you're going to try and introduce a movie maybe in August. And you and I have always talked about how August is like feast or famine. And as you get closer to the school year, if it comes to the point where the kids are being rushed back into the school year, this could be really something that could hurt that movie even more. But you're right. The theater industry, as we're going to be talking about on the back end of the show, is going to need some type of injection of quality films, of high profile films to come out almost instantly as soon as all these theaters come out. And maybe you're right, Black Widow could be the case, but I just don't want to see Black Widow end up being, falling flat on his face because it deserves a lot better than that.
Well, I mean, if you look at the lineup of films that are slated to come out or that are going to be ready by the time this whole thing's over, there's not really a big selection, because let's say one of these movies you're talking about, Doctor Strange, right? Say that they haven't finished filming that movie, they're not going to be able to release that. So it would be a matter of them having to keep pushing things back and back and back. And, at this point, they'll be lucky if they can get something into the summer block, but the big summer movie spot. And that is seeming highly unlikely, at least right now, at the rate things are going. So yeah, it might not be, they might want to just hold off until the holiday season to release something big. I don't see like September, we've talked about this before, right? September, October not being great spots for films. So
I mean, It Chapter 2, It Chapter 1, those were one of the rare movies that have really, gone to box office huge
Yeah.
success during the September months.
Mhm.
I mean, August, Feast or Famine, what, 1917? That debuted in August. That was that did no not 19. What's Jonathan Nolan's last film before that?
Inception.
That's still a while back.
Oh, Dunkirk.
Dunkirk, yes. Dunkirk was released in August. That did pretty good. But the last movie that we can think of off the top of our heads that really did blockbusters was Guardians of the Galaxy in August. So that's something you got to think about. Do you want to go ahead and risk putting a movie like Black Widow out in a August, September deal, or do you just wait until November? You either you restart the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Eternals, or do you bump it and keep bumping it back like we were talking about and put Black Widow in its place in the winter time?
Okay, I've just taken my stance right now. I would wait until November. I put it out Thanksgiving weekend.
Black Widow or Eternals?
I would do Black Widow because you are on a holiday. All the kids are home from school. The kids know Black Widow. I would put Black Widow out in November. And then
because Bond's coming out right around that time. As of now, Bond was moved back.
No, that's the perfect time though. You have two films, and here's an interesting quandary for you too. You have two films, both about secret agents or spies or whatever you want to call them. One is centered around a male character, the other centered around a female character. There is literally something for everybody. It's perfect.
Nice job, Kevin. Nice job. Well, we talked about what we should start off the Marvel Cinematic Universe with, but I wanted to ask you, Josh/Kevin, but I wanted to ask you real quick, all kidding aside, you've talked about where you wanted to place it. And for me, that's not such a bad idea after all, saying that Black Widow should be pushed back to November, and you're going to push back what's going on with the Eternals, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange 2, etc., etc. I think you should put on that February schedule, I think you should put the Eternals because you've already done most of your work there. I think you're just basically at this point touching up as far as special effects and maybe doing a reshoot a little bit here and there. So you've got the Eternals maybe going to a February slot, and then the problem becomes, do you prioritize Doctor Strange 2 or Shang-Chi for that May release? Doctor Strange 2, I'm not in love with, especially because it is a wannabe horror movie. It's going to be a PG-13 horror movie that's going to scare a lot of younger audiences primarily. But I think it's important to the overall scheme of things when you talk about the multiverses and all that. With Shang-Chi, I really want to see that film, and you talked about it as well because we're both Kung Fu fans, and we would like to see a Kung Fu film being given its just deserved. It's just being given what it does, the whole genre deserves, and have a really, really big worldwide release because we have really, we've not seen that as far as a Kung Fu movie have that type of backing, have that type of high intensity type of promotion that we think the Kung Fu genre deserves. But the problem is, I think if push comes to shove and they push back, as you and I think are both agreeing now, Black Widow to November, and you would probably put Eternals because it's a ready-made film or almost a ready-made film in February. Shang-Chi would probably be the odd individual movie out at this point. I think you'll have to go ahead and figure out somewhere in the timeline to put it. And that saddens me greatly because I think that film was going to rock if given the chance.
Yeah, I agree. But, again, as they're going to have to do some rebuilding initially, right? They're going to have to do some rekindling of interest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And like you had said, there's a lot of burnout following Spider-Man, right? So now they're going to have to do, especially with these shows that people were waiting for, August, or when was the first Disney Plus show supposed to be released? It was August?
August, that's correct. It is Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
It is still scheduled for then, but it has stopped filming, so that means not all the episodes have been shot.
Yes. So, I mean, especially with those probably not coming out, like it would be smart to put something out that people recognize, people know. And they're gonna have, like I said, they're gonna have to do some like rebuilding, and then they're gonna have to make references maybe over these Disney Plus shows towards things that are about to come out. They're gonna almost have to start from scratch, but like a soft reboot.
And that would be an issue because, with everything that's going on in the world, if people get distracted and all that, that's going to be hard for them to go ahead and promote. But I hear you. I'm always wanted to know what is the motivation behind putting Black Widow now and not sooner. I think they just could not find a place on it on the schedule once Kevin Feige got the reins of it. And, where and why is it coming out when it's coming out with Phase 4? What is it going to do to tell a story other than the Thunderbolts? I want to know what that is going to establish, because as you know, even from Iron Man in Phase 1, that almost every one of those stories led and built and led up to what we saw in Avengers Endgame. What will Black Widow do, other than maybe introducing us to the next Black Widow, do as far as that's concerned? Because I think that's probably the only thing I can surmise outside of Thunderbolts. But when it comes to Thunderbolts, how important, a future will the Thunderbolts have? I don't see them as someone you could go ahead and have a Avengers Endgame level movie with, as far as a counter. They can have their own movie, but I don't see them as far as being a, to pardon the pun, Endgame type deal. They can't be a Thanos level type event. They can be an Ultron level type event. You can have a battle with them as far as the Avengers, the Avengers versus the Thunderbolts at some point in time if you want. And that would create a movie in and of itself. But I don't see them being an end goal for, that part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it leads into detail about Black Widow's place in this whole thing. Where, what stories do you really want to tell for Black Widow to be justified in this time frame with phase 3?
Well, she only has one story to tell, and that's the one that they have geared up to tell. And they've already released the trailers. They've already done a majority of the marketing. So it feels like this is the right time for something like that to come out. And once this is out of the way, then they can really start to, push the next phase of films, right? Because Black Widow is no longer with us. God rest her soul. Well, this is once that's out of the way, they can really start focusing. I think it's a smart move to release this first, because after that, then they can really do the build up to whatever's coming next in the MCU without having to worry about backtracking.
So, Kevin, I want you to go ahead and take a look into your crystal ball. Kevin, aka/Josh, of course. I want you to go ahead and look in that crystal ball, and you see what's coming up in Marvel Phase 4. I said, against all my better judgment, possibly, I think if any project up in, maybe any of the Phase 4 projects, maybe even What If, maybe if you swapped Shang-Chi into What If scenario, the What If series going on Disney Plus, that is coming out in summer 2021. Maybe if you could bump What If back and put Shang-Chi in its place, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But I want to hear your thoughts, man. I mean, if you're looking at Phase 4 and you're talking about where you want to go with it, because you also have to do a lot of introducing of characters. You also have to do a lot of hints towards the future with possible Fantastic Four, X-Men references and all that, even Deadpool and all that. So if you're looking at Phase 4 and the movies and the projects of Phase 4, what else are you going to restructure around it? Because I think for me, it has to be Shang-Chi. I wouldn't take it off the list. I would just go ahead and move it in place of the What If, which you can pretty much put at any point in time in the schedule in any year and will still be eaten up by fans of Disney Plus.
Okay, this might sound crazy, but if it were me, I would.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin. You sound crazy, but go ahead.
As Kevin, I would go ahead and I would put out another Sorry, I would use either, because from what I understand, they're toying with the idea of keeping the Defenders, right? They're the Netflix heroes, the people who played them in the shows. I would use either Daredevil or, don't throw stones at me, but do another season of Iron Fist, and I would make references. Well, I mean, either one, Daredevil or Iron Fist, and make references to Shang-Chi. Do the whole thing. You know how with in Daredevil they had Lady Mao, right? And then they had the little dragon on the drugs, and that's what Matt Murdock was chasing for so long. They should make references. They need to do build-ups. That's what got people so stoked about Avengers, right? They had the post-credit scenes and everything that said, we're building a team, or I'm going down to New Mexico, or something like that. And if they do stuff like that, then that will create an audible buzz for people who will want to go see these movie theaters, especially with a hero so unknown like Shang-Chi. It would be smart of them to use properties where that he has existed in to kind of hype up his legacy, and then boom, just throw him on the screen like that, and people will be stoked about it. There's some properties like Shang-Chi where I don't think that's they'll have the curiosity factor that Guardians of the Galaxy did, right? Because Guardians of the Galaxy had already been featured in like the 90s X-Men, and every kid grew up watching that show. Whereas Shang-Chi is kind of his own character, right? He's been in the comic books, he's been in Spider-Man comics, he's been in Daredevil comics, he's been in Iron Fist comics, but he was always known as like Iron Fist's sidekick. So they need to do something to kind of hype up what a big deal he is. And then I think that would be a proper move to get people hyped enough to go out to the theaters to watch this.
I won't throw rocks at you. Maybe some TP, but I won't throw rocks at you.
Hey man, I'm running low, so any TP you want to throw my way would be helpful.
I can't throw it that far from Las Vegas, but you know what I'm going to do. I will tell you this, my friend, that it was an interesting concept, but that's going to be a hard sell. Iron Fist, I would do another Iron Fist. I would not get the Danny Rand from Netflix. I'm sorry. He just
okay.
too much bad mojo with that.
And that's fine, but they need to make it pre-exist in that world where where what's his name? The guy that plays, they need to make it exist within the Netflix world. If they're just going to retcon the actor and put in someone new and just have him pick up right where the last one left off, that'd be awesome. But they've already created all these little things, and I don't think they would be able to do it like that, especially if they're going to keep Charlie Cox as Daredevil, and they're talking about Jessica Ritter staying around as Jessica Jones, and John Bernthal. I think they're done with Luke Cage and done with Iron Fist, but they need to maybe replace the actors if they don't like him. I don't know. It needs to be something. They need to hype him up in a world where he is known to exist in the comic books.
But the thing is with Shang-Chi, I don't think that movie, Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings, I don't think that movie is geared towards the American market per se. If it makes a good chunk of change on the American marketplace, I think that's awesome. I just think this is geared more towards the Asian markets, and I just think it's geared more towards China, more towards that whole Asia market that it sorely needs something that they can identify with in all this. They've been buying into the Marvel Cinematic Universe for quite some time now, and it's about time that they have something that they can identify with 100%. And this is something that with Shang-Chi, I think would go over huge. You and I are really into it because of the kung fu factor, and you and I are hoping it's a worldwide success because of it. But I really think that movie is being put out for a reason, and it's going to be geared towards another marketplace outside of really a domestic marketplace. I think it really will be geared towards the Asian marketplaces, and I think it will do really, really well. And I don't think it's bad that it's going to do well. I think that's a great sign that they're going to go ahead and accommodate that audience, similar to what Black Panther has done, similar to what Captain Marvel has done, similar to all that. And you're introducing and bringing in everybody to go ahead and identify with characters on screen to help build your audience overall even more. So I see Shang-Chi as an important, milestone, but also an important cog in this whole future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because as you see with Star Wars has never been really identified in China. It cannot go over. It's not gone over well in China at all because they can't identify it. They didn't, the marketplace did not actually show the first original ones at the time that they were produced. So they really have no, they've had really very little interest in the Star Wars movies, yet they've embraced the Marvel culture, really, really well. And I think that Shang-Chi is going to introduce that audience. I think Shang-Chi is an important part of it, but having him go alongside Danny Rand and Iron Fist, I'm not exactly the highest.
No. I don't mean that he should go alongside him. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying they need to make hints at him, show that he exists within this universe. Because a lot of people who know this market, or no, not the market, but know the character, they know his symbols, right? They know his name, they know his bad guys. They need to hint that he exists in that universe.
We know some of it from Iron Man.
No, they know
the Mandarin.
Yes, they know the 10 rings, the Mandarin. The comic books, those aren't connected to each other. And that's I guess that's they're kind of taking some liberties with the movies here, but they need to build him up somehow. That he doesn't necessarily have to be in any of the shows. They need to hint at him the same way they hint at Captain America, right, in the Hulk, by talking about the superhero, the super soldier serum. They need to build him up like they did the Avengers. They need to talk about him, drop hints, Easter eggs in there to show they exist, kind of like what they do in the collector's cages, right? In Guardians of the Galaxy, they show Adam Warlock's egg and Howard the Duck and things like that. They need to show that he exists in this timeline, and people will get, oh, that's going to be really cool because that's coming out. The same way at the end of Iron Man 2, they showed Coulson in New Mexico and they showed the hammer in the ground.
Well, okay. So you're establishing that part of it. Okay, I get it. And that's fine. But I think Shang-Chi will probably get bumped if I'm thinking in along the lines of what Kevin Feige may do and what Josh Feige may do as well. I'm thinking Shang-Chi will get bumped to the summer. I think they're just going to go ahead and maybe leapfrog over Doctor Strange 2. I'm not in love with Doctor Strange 2 being that May prime release, but they really don't have something else that can generate that kind of money or a familiar enough property, because Thor Love and Thunder, you can't push that up too far. I mean, pushing that up, 6 months? I don't think you're going to be able to go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to be able to suggest at this point in time is put out, like you said, Black Widow in November. Let's move Eternals to February. Let's leapfrog, in case of Shang-Chi, move that over into a summer type deal. Move What If into the next phase, because again, that's something that's not really needed 100% right now to the Disney Plus audience. It's obviously content and Disney Plus audience needs it, but as a overall Marvel Cinematic Universe thing, they don't really need that show to be on when it's on. They can go ahead and tell those stories the next year after that in 2022, I think it is, 2022. And that's phase 5, I think, at that point in time when you get into it. So you can go ahead and throw it there. I just think at this point in time, you need Shang-Chi, especially there's certain markets that are out there that could really be interested in something like this. I think it would really do well. Let's go ahead and put it in the summer of 2021. Again, leapfrog it over Doctor Strange 2. Keep Doctor Strange 2 on its May release, and then end it off the year with Thor Love and Thunder. How about that, Kevin Feige, a.k.a. Josh?
It was Love and Thunder even announced as part of the next phase?
Yep, that's the last part of phase 4, my friend, in November of 2021.
Okay, well, I mean, hold on. I don't even have a list of the films that are in.
Well, right now, if it started today, if everything was good and all that, you have Black Widow on May. Though it's, like I said, it's been already postponed at this point in time. You have Eternals in November.
Okay.
You have WandaVision in spring of 2021. You have The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like we talked about, August. In fact, actually, WandaVision was actually bumped up to a late 2020 release, I should say, as well. So Falcon and Winter Soldier and WandaVision were scheduled to be in 2020. You have Loki coming in spring 2021. You have Hawkeye. That's up in the air, but they're still talking about it being sometime late 2021. Then you have, for the movies, you have Shang-Chi scheduled right now for a February release. You have Doctor Strange in May of next year. And then you have Thor, Love and Thunder in November 5th. And then again, last but not least, sometime in the summer 2021, you have the What If series from Disney Plus, which I said you should bump out of the schedule at this point in time and move Shang-Chi in that spot. Because if you're bumping the first two films, aka The Eternals and Black Widow, you're bumping those back. I think Shang-Chi should still get a release in 2021. I just think it should go into the summer, and you can move What If off the schedule into the next year after that.
Yeah, okay, I'll be honest, far too many names to keep track of in that last little bit there, but
we'll be taking a test shortly.
Yeah, seriously, my brain is fried just hearing all 40 million things coming out from Marvel this year. We're supposed to. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think there is really any. I would start with Black Widow, like I said, and then I would maybe put something less known and then maybe something more known, kind of alternate back and forth. Obviously, with the Disney Plus properties, no one really knows anything about those yet because they haven't seen them. But assuming that they are, film quality and they are up to the snuff of being, a Marvel property, I would go ahead and, I would push those closer together. I wouldn't make people wait 6 months in between each series. I would put them, because also, like, with these things being put on pause, they're going to have to pause their movie plans too, because a lot of these shows are supposed to be prerequisites to the movies. So there's definitely going to have to be a lot of, be some compacting going on there.
Well, there looks like there's going to have to be some compacting going on there, and so maybe some rearranging of the stories you want to tell or the hints you want to give to other shows and other series. But yes, there is going to have to be some type of restructuring within the framework of the Marvel Cinematic Universe when it comes to Phase 4. Josh and I both agree that Black Widow should be moved to the November release, where the Eternals is, in and around where the Eternals is at schedule. We're in and around where the Eternals is scheduled to be at right now in November 2020. So I want to hear your thoughts out there from everyone. If you've got to change, what's going on with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, do you have something else in mind? Again, I'm going to go ahead and run it down what I think that if I was Kevin Feige, I would be thinking about right now. And that is Black Widow, and that is starting off with the Falcon and Winter Soldier in August. You go with Black Widow, the movie, going to November. You're talking the Eternals. You're talking right after that WandaVision coming right now in either late 2020 or early spring 2021. That's what I think maybe you should still be able to do, because I think they should have enough at that point to go ahead and do the series. In February, I want to move the Eternals to February. I want to go ahead and put Loki out into the late spring. That will be coming to Disney Plus. I want to go ahead and keep, because I don't really have any other great alternatives at this point in time, Doctor Strange 2 and the Multiverse of Madness. Still keep that May 7th date for next year. The one thing I really want to go ahead and move off the schedule at this point in time, whether or not Hawkeye is still going to be a fall release, we're still not 100% sure what's going on there. Fall release of 2021, we're still not sure what's going on there, is the What If series that is scheduled for summer 2021. That I would move off the books until 2022. I would move Shang-Chi over from its February starting point right now. I would move that into the summer of 2021 and then end the year in November with Thor: Love and Thunder. What are your thoughts out there with that entire shake up and juggling of the schedule of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Did you like what we presented on today's show, or do you have something else in mind? Let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. We're almost on out. Just want to thank everybody for listening and also watching us right here on our YouTube channel, The Pop Culture Cosmos. But before we head on out, my friend, I did want to go ahead and address something that we talked about during the course of the show, and that is the theater industry of itself. And that is the theater industry itself. I want to ask you your thoughts on this, my friend, because in recent times, because of the sheer financial stress of closing so many theaters around the country, they're now asking the government for some help, some financial assistance to keep them solvent at this point in time. With so many businesses and so many individuals in need right now due to the financial crisis, based off of what's happened with the coronavirus, do you see this as something that the theater industry should get a priority over? Do you see the theater industry as being an entity that should get bumped up to the front of the line or near to the front of the line? Do you think that the theater industry as a whole is deserving of that type of marketplace, that type of thought as far as being a marketplace that needs some type of assistance from our government and from governments in general? European, Asian markets, doesn't matter. All of them are clamoring for help right now. Do you think they should be helped out?
That's a tough one. I've actually been thinking about this, because like I said earlier in the show, I think that this goes to show you what this virus has done besides, the obvious is it's kind of shown us how the movie theater, the movie industry needs to be restructured, right? Like I said, a lot of people were in this era of Netflix and chill, and a lot of people are willing, obviously, by them putting the Invisible Man and Onward and stuff like that on TV screens, out on video on demand. People are out there buying them. People are out there paying that $20 to watch these movies. And I think this goes to show that there needs to be a restructuring of movie theaters. It needs to be, if you want people to go to the movie theaters, you need to lower the cost, or you can these studios can move to this format where people are able to watch these movies from home, because they are still paying to see these movies. The price doesn't seem to be an issue as long as they can watch it from their couch. So this kind of shows me that people just don't want to go to the movie theaters anymore. It has nothing to do with maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the price of the movie theater. So what if they're able to put something straight to video on demand, and someone is willing to pay $20 for it, what do the theaters offer? What is that? If I'd be curious to see how the numbers match up. Like if someone were willing to put a movie in theaters and then make it available on video on demand, like a big film, how would the two stack up against each other? Would you find more people wanting to stay on their couch to watch the movie, or would you find more people wanting to go to the movies? Because the movies, it's a big ordeal. Like think about it. By the time you take say it's a family film, by the time you take an entire family to go see the movie, you're coming out of there with almost a $200 bill, and that's assuming you bought popcorn and all that stuff. So, but then you prepare dinner and you watch the movie from your couch, you're still you're paying less money, and you're probably going to have more people wanting to watch that movie. It's a double-edged sword, man. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's hard to say that, because depending on the movie, let's put like we go back to Black Widow. Black Widow is going to be an event movie when and if it ever gets out, released to the theaters. That's a movie people will go to see. So if you're saying, oh, let's just go put it on video, yeah, it would sell more upfront in video, on home video, than it would have if it had gone standard. Okay, it's going out for X amount of time in the theaters, and it goes X amount of time on digital, Blu-ray, etc., etc. I get that. But the problem is, I think, what was it? I heard the other day, 5 or 6 different ways a movie can make money. And the first obviously is going to the theaters. So if you if you go ahead and you axe and you cut out that first opportunity to make and generate revenue, and you go straight to video, that's something, no matter how much upfront money you get from that home video $20, buying in, buy now, that you would not normally get if it was released in a normal cycle of time, that's still not going to make up for it's still only going to make up a small percentage of what you would make if you released it into the theaters. Let's say, like I said, Black Widow. Let's say it makes $100 million in its first weekend and in the theaters. And you, instead of doing that, you canceled out and you go ahead and put it on home video, and it makes $60-70 million in home video. Okay, that's still, you have to take a portion of that and say, you know what, this is what it would have made anyways had it been through a normal cycle. So you end up losing out, if you're Disney, I think, too much. If for some of these films, you're right, it's probably a good move that if it goes straight to video. But for some of these big event films, it's something you really shouldn't be passing up.
Well, yeah, and like Nolan always says, right? There are some movies that are meant to be experienced in the theaters. They're not meant to be watched from your house, and I think that would be, a reason to keep movie theaters around in itself. But it's just the landscape is changing. What people want is changing, and I think that that's going to start having a dramatic effect on the market. And I think this whole thing has been an interesting social experiment, because this is showing what the average consumer in 2020 wants as far as movies are concerned, as far as watching new movies are concerned. You would putting things straight into VOD result in more people watching that movie, more people paying the $20 to get that movie? That's the big question here.
But then you're also losing out. Okay, you talked about the $200 family. That's what you're losing out just by one $20 home video purchase. The entire family gets to see it, and obviously that's a great savings, and that's money better spent somewhere else. But the problem is they're not going out to theaters, so the theater loses out on not only one, but two, but three, four, or even more tickets that they could have bought separately, and ended up generating revenue from that.
Okay, but devil's advocate here, who's to say that 4 or 5 more families won't pay that $20 to watch the movie?
That's a big if, my friend.
I know, but I mean, again, this has been an interesting social experiment, because if I were someone who was making movies or even making products, like, this would be a good time to take notes and find out what the consumer is like in 2020, what they want, how they consume their goods. This is a gold mine of information that is happening right now.
Gold mine of information as far as all the possibilities that could come out of it, and what's going to end up happening to the theater industry after this coronavirus situation ends, and hopefully it'll end sooner rather than later. Because right now the theater industry is in dire need of something. Obviously at this point they're really hurting as an industry worldwide. I mean, you see, let's just take a look at the latest numbers from Box Office Mojo. When you look at them, the latest numbers that they posted for Thursday, the winner was Onward with $33,000 domestically. That is nationwide in the United States, $33,000. To give you an idea, off the top of my head, Avengers Endgame probably made that at each theater in an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours in just a very short period of time. So it just tells you right now how dire the situation is. But then again, there's so many industries out there also feeling the impact from this coronavirus. The government cannot help everyone. And that's the problem. They have to prioritize exactly which industries they should help. But the first thing is that they should help first most is the consumers out there at large. And that's something that I'm hoping will be done sooner rather than later. Not trying to get all political or whatnot, but the first people who need the help most are the people who are actually suffering the most from this crisis, and that's you and I.
Yeah, I agree. And we're seeing a lot of political jabbing at each other, at people during this whole passing the bill to put the money out to help so and so, and it's like, why can't we all just come together, man? Why can't we all? This is like a good time for us to stop bickering back and forth and stop hating and just like do what's good for everybody. And that even now it seems is not possible.
It's just the way our society is set up, my friend. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes.
I have a theory, and tell me what you think about this theory. I believe that there's no such thing as being content because most people are not content unless they have something to complain about.
Yeah, it usually is the case. I know it's the case for us each week right here on the show. What do you think?
Only when we talk about King Arthur, and that's mostly you.
No. What about toilet paper?
Oh, that's true. I need toilet paper. Hey, if you guys have some toilet paper, feel free to, you can send it through email or just pop a picture up on our social media pages. We'd appreciate it.
Fair enough. Just look for Pop Culture Cosmos on Twitter, Instagram, and you can email us, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com, plus all the latest news and information right here at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. Had a lot of great stuff to talk about. Sorry I confused you as far as, that's why you don't have me sitting at the top of Marvel Tower. But before we head on out, any last things you want to say, Kevin/Josh?
Yes. Bring back Charlie Cox's Daredevil. That was an absolutely fantastic series, and I really want to see that come back. I hope the rumors are true that he's going to be in the next Spider-Man film, because that would be absolutely fantastic.
One day we'll hopefully know for sure if that's the case. And for all those who love that character and many of the Defenders, let's hope that they will go ahead and get a second life in the MCU. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And thank you for watching as well. And here's hoping you have yourself a great